Hey there, and welcome to Crazy Pepper, the channel where drama sizzles and revenge burns hotter than ever. If you love jaw dropping twists, bold characters, and stories that keep you guessing till the end, you're in the right place. Subscribe and dive into gripping tales of betrayal, karma, and ultimate payback. Get ready for unforgettable moments and satisfying endings, only on Crazy Pepper. Hit that, though, and let the drama begin. The contractor found my wife's burner phone at 3:15 on a Tuesday afternoon, hidden behind the kitchen wall like a dirty secret wrapped in pink insulation. "Elliot," Paul whispered, his weathered hands trembling as he held up the device. "You need to see this, and maybe get the kids out of here first." I set down my coffee mug, the ceramic making a sharp clink against the granite countertop Lydia had insisted we install last spring. The same countertop she'd argued about for weeks, claiming I didn't understand her vision for our home. Now, I wondered what other visions she'd been keeping from me. "What are you talking about, Paul?" Paul Martinez had been renovating houses in Garrison, Maine for 37 years. I'd known him since high school, trusted him with every major project at Granger Construction Supply. The man didn't spook easily, but right now, his face was pale as the drywall dust coating his work boots. "Just trust me on this one, Elliot. Get Emma and Jake somewhere else. Maybe call your sister." My stomach twisted. Emma was 13, Jake was 10. They were upstairs doing homework, probably fighting over the PlayStation again. Normal kid stuff, the kind of normal I thought we had. "Paul, you're scaring me here. What's on that phone?" He handed it to me, with the careful reverence of someone passing along a live grenade. The screen was cracked but functional. When I powered it on, the first thing I saw was a text thread that made my blood run cold. "Colin, can't wait to see you tonight. Same place?" "Lydia, yes. Elliot's working late again. He never pays attention anyway." "Colin, good. Bring those photos we talked about. Time to make our move." I scrolled up. Months of messages, months of planning, months of my wife discussing me like I was some obstacle to navigate around. "Jesus Christ," I muttered. "There's more," Paul said quietly. "Found these too." He handed me a manila envelope that had been taped to the inside of the wall. Inside were Polaroid photos of our house, our yard, our kids getting on the school bus, and underneath those, copies of financial documents, bank statements, insurance policies, business contracts from my supply yard. My hands were shaking now, 39 years old, and I felt like a kid who'd just discovered monsters were real. "Paul, how long has this stuff been in there?" "Hard to say, but the tape's not old. Maybe 6 months, tops." He wiped his hands on his jeans. "Elliot, I've been doing this work a long time. People hide things in walls when they're planning something big, something they can't risk keeping in the open." The front door slammed. Lydia's heels clicked across the hardwood floor, that familiar rhythm that used to make me smile. Now it sounded like a countdown timer. "Elliot, whose truck is that in the driveway?" Her voice carried that edge it got when she was irritated, which lately was most of the time. I shoved the phone and photos back into the envelope, handed it to Paul. "Hide this. Don't let her see it. Elliot, please." Lydia appeared in the kitchen doorway, still wearing her HR manager uniform. Black pantsuit, white blouse, that practiced smile she used on difficult employees. At 37, she was still beautiful in that polished, untouchable way that had first attracted me in college. But now I noticed things I'd been blind to. The way her eyes never quite met mine. How she checked her phone constantly. The new perfume that smelled expensive and unfamiliar. "Oh, it's Paul." Her tone cooled several degrees. "I thought we agreed no more work this week. I have the Henderson dinner party on Friday." "Just finishing up the kitchen wall," Paul said, his voice carefully neutral. "Should be done soon." "Good, because I need this mess cleaned up." She looked around the room like she was surveying a crime scene. "Elliot, we need to talk about the budget for this renovation." I studied her face, the same face that had smiled at me across 1,000 breakfast tables, the same lips that had whispered, "I love you" on our wedding night 15 years ago. How long had she been lying to me? "Sure," I said. "Let's talk." Paul gathered his tools with unusual haste. "I'll be back tomorrow to finish the cleanup," he said, meeting my eyes meaningfully. "Don't forget what we discussed." After he left, Lydia poured herself a glass of wine from the bottle she kept chilled in the refrigerator. It was barely 4 o'clock. "That man makes me nervous," she said, "always poking around, asking questions." He's been renovating houses since before we met. He knows what he's doing. I'm not questioning his competence. I'm questioning his discretion. She took a long sip of wine. Some things are private, Elliot. Family business should stay family business. The irony was so thick I could taste it. Absolutely. Privacy is important in a marriage. She gave me a sharp look. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Just agreeing with you. I leaned against the counter, studying her. Speaking of privacy, I've been thinking we should update our security system. Maybe add some cameras. Her wine glass paused halfway to her lips. Cameras? Why? Break-ins have been increasing in the neighborhood. Mrs. Patterson had someone go through her shed last month. I want to protect our family. I think that's overkill. We live in a safe area. Safe is relative. You never know who might be watching the house, learning our routines. This time, she set the glass down hard enough to slosh wine onto the counter. Elliot, you're being paranoid. Am I? Or am I just finally paying attention? We stared at each other across the kitchen. 15 years of marriage, and I felt like I was looking at a stranger. A beautiful, dangerous stranger who'd been living in my house, sleeping in my bed, planning God knows what behind my back. I'm going to pick up the kids, I said finally. They can walk home. It's only 6 blocks. Not today. I think I'll drive them. Why? Because I want to spend time with my children. Is that a problem? She turned away, started wiping down counters that were already clean. Do whatever you want. You always do anyway. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. Behind me, I heard her phone buzz with a text message. Then another. Then another. In the truck, I called my sister Rebecca. Hey, Elliot. What's up? Can Emma and Jake stay with you tonight? Maybe tomorrow night too? Of course. Is everything okay? I watched our house in the rearview mirror as I drove away. Lydia was standing at the kitchen window, phone pressed to her ear, gesturing animatedly. I'll explain later. Just keep them safe, okay? Elliot, you're scaring me. Good. Someone should be scared. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in my workshop behind the house, studying the contents of that manila envelope by the light of my desk lamp. Paul had dropped it off after Lydia went to bed, along with something else he'd found. A small digital camera, the kind used for home security, hidden in the heating vent. Someone's been watching you, Elliot, he'd said. Question is, who's doing the watching? Now, at 2 a.m, I had my answer. The camera's memory card contained dozens of photos of me, coming and going from the house, working in the yard, loading supplies at the business, all taken from angles that suggested the photographer had intimate knowledge of my routines. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Unknown. Stop digging or you'll find more than you bargained for. I screenshot the message, then typed back, Who is this? No response. I pulled up our cell phone account online, something I'd never bothered to check before. Lydia managed our bills, claimed she was better with details, but now I saw what she'd been hiding. 3 additional lines on our family plan. Numbers I didn't recognize, all with unlimited data and premium features. One of those numbers matched the unknown texter. Another belonged to Colin Baird. I knew Colin peripherally. Real estate broker, drove a silver BMW, had that slick confidence that came from closing million-dollar deals. I'd sold him building supplies a few times when his clients needed contractors. He'd always struck me as the type who collected trophies, expensive watches, vintage cars, other men's wives. The third number was a mystery. At 6 a.m., I drove to Dottie's Diner on Main Street. Dottie Hendricks had owned the place for 23 years and knew every secret in Garrison. If Colin Baird was making moves in my marriage, she'd know about it. Elliot Granger, she called from behind the counter. Haven't seen you in here for months. Where's that pretty wife of yours? Working early, you know how it is. I sure do. Speaking of work, that Colin Baird's been busy lately. Seen him around town at all hours. Real estate must be booming. I ordered coffee and eggs, kept my voice casual. Yeah? He's always been ambitious. Ambitious, Dottie snorted. That's one word for it. Man's got wandering eyes, if you ask me. Was in here last week with some married woman. Not his wife, I can tell you that much. My coffee suddenly tasted like acid. Really? Pretty thing, professional looking. They were real cozy, talking quiet, holding hands under the table like teenagers. She refilled my cup. None of my business, of course, but I always feel bad for the spouses who don't know. What did she look like? Dark hair, expensive clothes, drove a white Lexus SUV. She leaned closer, lowered her voice. Had on this fancy perfume, smelled like roses and money. Lydia's perfume, Lydia's car. I finished breakfast in silence, left a generous tip, and drove to my supply yard. Ray Morrison, my right-hand man for the past 8 years, was already there unloading a shipment of lumber. "Boss, you look like hell," he said. Ray was ex-military, built like a linebacker, with the kind of direct honesty that cut through bullshit like a chainsaw. "What's eating you?" I told him everything. The phone, the photos, the camera, Colin Baird. Ray listened without interruption, his expression growing darker with each detail. "Son of a bitch," he said finally. "How long you think this has been going on?" "Based on the messages? At least 6 months. Maybe longer." "And you're sure it's Baird?" I showed him the phone records, the text thread, the photos. Ray studied them with the methodical attention he'd once used to analyze enemy positions in Afghanistan. "This is bad, Elliot. Real bad. They're not just having an affair, they're planning something." "Like what?" "Look at these financial documents. Your insurance policies, business contracts, bank statements. Why would they need copies of all this?" The implications hit me like a sledgehammer. "You think they're planning to rob me?" "Or worse. Think about it. You have a successful business, nice house, good insurance policies. If something happened to you, Lydia would inherit everything and be free to marry her boyfriend." We stood in silence, surrounded by stacks of lumber and building supplies, tools of construction, of building things that would last, while my marriage had been rotting from the inside like termite-damaged wood. "What do you want to do?" Ray asked. "I want to know exactly what they're planning, and I want to stop them." "That could be dangerous." "More dangerous than doing nothing?" Ray grinned, and for the first time in 24 hours, I felt like I had an ally. "What do you need?" "Help me install some real security cameras around the house. The kind they won't find. And I want to know everything about Colin Baird's business, his finances, his weaknesses." "I can do that. What about Lydia?" "I'm going to give her enough rope to hang herself." That evening, I came home to find Lydia in the kitchen, cooking dinner. She was wearing a new dress, had her hair done, looked like she was preparing for a date. "You're home early," she said, not looking up from the stove. "Thought I'd surprise you. Smells good in here." "Just spaghetti, nothing fancy." I watched her move around the kitchen, noticed how she kept checking her phone, how she jumped every time it buzzed. "The kids are staying at Rebecca's again tonight," I said. "Oh, why?" "Thought we could use some alone time. Reconnect." She turned to face me and I saw something flicker in her eyes. Fear? Guilt? "That sounds nice," she said, but her voice was tight. During dinner, I played the role of oblivious husband, asked about her day, mentioned a funny story Ray had told me, complimented the food, all while watching her squirm. "You seem distracted," I said finally. "Just tired. Work's been stressful." "Anything I can help with?" "No, it's just office politics. You wouldn't understand. Try me. I deal with people all day, too." She set down her fork, looked at me with that practiced patience she used when explaining things to the children. "It's different, Elliot. Your customers buy supplies and leave. I have to navigate complex relationships, manage personalities, handle sensitive situations." "Sensitive situations?" "Employee issues, confidential matters. Must be hard, keeping secrets." Her phone buzzed. She grabbed it immediately, read the message, started typing a response. "Important?" I asked. "Work emergency. At 8 p.m.? Some emergencies don't wait for business hours." I nodded, took another bite of spaghetti. "You know, I was thinking about taking a vacation, maybe just the two of us. Get away from all the stress." "I can't take time off right now." "When's the last time we went anywhere together?" "I don't know. Last summer?" "We went to your mother's house last summer. I meant somewhere for us." She was typing another message, not really listening. "Maybe next year. Or maybe this weekend. We could drive up to Bar Harbor, stay at that bed and breakfast you used to like." "Elliot, I said I can't." "Why not?" "Because I have commitments." "What kind of commitments?" She looked up from her phone, irritation flashing across her face. "Why are you interrogating me?" "I'm not interrogating you. I'm trying to plan a romantic getaway with my wife." "Well, your timing is terrible." "When would be better?" "I don't know. Later." "How much later?" "God, Elliot, what is this? 20 questions?" I leaned back in my chair, studied her flushed face, the way her hands trembled slightly as she held her phone. "Just trying to understand my wife's schedule. Is that a crime?" "You're being weird." "Weird how?" "Pushy, suspicious, like you don't trust me." The irony was so perfect I almost laughed. Should I trust you? What kind of question is that? An honest one. We stared at each other across the dinner table. 15 years of shared meals, shared dreams, shared lies. I wondered if she could see the knowledge in my eyes, the growing certainty that my marriage was over. Her phone buzzed again. This time she ignored it. I think I'll go to bed early, she said, standing up. I have a big day tomorrow. Doing what? Meetings, reports, the usual. Will you be home for dinner? Probably not. Don't wait up. After she went upstairs, I checked the new security cameras Ray had helped me install. They were hidden in the eaves of the house, virtually invisible, with night vision and motion detection. The feeds went directly to an app on my phone. At 11:47 p.m., I watched my wife sneak out the back door, get into her Lexus, and drive away. I followed her. Lydia drove to the Pineview Motel on Route 8, a rundown place that rented rooms by the hour and didn't ask questions. Colin's BMW was already there, parked behind the building where it couldn't be seen from the road. I parked across the street and watched through binoculars as my wife knocked on the door of room 12. Colin answered, pulled her inside, and closed the door. For 20 minutes, I sat in my truck, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to decide what to do. Part of me wanted to kick down that door and confront them. Part of me wanted to drive home and pretend I'd never seen anything. But the rational part of my brain, the part that had built a successful business from nothing, knew that evidence was more valuable than satisfaction. I took photos, lots of them. Lydia's car, Colin's car, the motel room, timestamps on everything. Then I went home and waited. She returned at 2:33 a.m., parking carefully in the garage, trying not to wake me. I pretended to be asleep when she slipped into bed, still smelling like Colin's cologne. The next morning, she was up early, showering, getting ready for work with unusual care. Sleep well? I asked when she came downstairs. Fine. You? Like a baby. She poured coffee into a travel mug, avoided eye contact. I'll be late tonight. That project I mentioned? Right. The sensitive situation? Exactly. After she left, I called Ray. I need you to do something for me. Name it. Colin Baird's BMW, silver, license plate. I read him the number from my photos. I want it decorated. What kind of decorating? The kind that makes a statement? Ray chuckled. I can do that. Anything else? Yeah. Find out where Baird lives, where he works, who his clients are. I want to know everything about him. On it, boss. That afternoon, I drove to the offices of Baird Real Estate. It was in a converted Victorian house on Elm Street, all white columns and brass nameplate, designed to project success and trustworthiness. I walked in like a potential client, told the receptionist I was interested in commercial properties for my expanding business. Within minutes, Colin appeared, all smiles and firm handshake. Mr. Granger, great to see you again. I heard you're looking at expansion opportunities. That's right. Business is booming. I need warehouse space, maybe some retail frontage. Excellent. I have several properties that might interest you. For the next hour, Colin showed me listings, talked about market trends, painted pictures of my business empire growing throughout central Maine. He was good at his job, I had to admit. Smooth, professional, convincing. He was also completely unaware that I knew he was sleeping with my wife. This warehouse on Industrial Drive might be perfect, he said, sliding a listing across his desk. 20,000 square feet, loading docks, office space. The owner is motivated to sell. Motivated how? Divorce. Needs to liquidate assets quickly. Divorce can be expensive. Very. Especially when there are complications. What kind of complications? Colin leaned back in his chair, that knowing smile playing at his lips. Let's just say that sometimes people make choices that affect their financial settlements. Such as infidelity, hidden assets, poor judgment. He shrugged. Smart people plan ahead, make sure they're protected before things get messy. I nodded thoughtfully. That's good advice. A man should always protect his interests. Exactly. You'd be surprised how many people get caught off guard. They trust the wrong person, don't pay attention to the warning signs, and suddenly they're losing everything. Everything? House, business, kids, reputation. Divorce court can be brutal, especially when there's evidence of wrongdoing. What kind of evidence? Photos, financial records, witness testimony. These days with cell phones and social media, it's almost impossible to keep secrets. The irony was delicious. Here was Colin lecturing me about infidelity and evidence, completely oblivious to the fact that I had photos of him and my wife from the night before. You seem to know a lot about divorce law, I said. I've seen a lot of marriages end badly. People think they're being clever, but they usually leave a trail. A trail? Text messages, credit card receipts, unexplained absences. The spouse is always the last to know, but when they finally figure it out, he made a cutting gesture across his throat. Sounds like you speak from experience. I've had clients going through difficult divorces. I try to help them protect their assets, but sometimes the damage is already done. I stood up, shook his hand. Thanks for the information. About the properties, I mean. Of course. Take your time deciding, but don't wait too long. Good opportunities don't last forever. Neither do marriages, apparently. Colin laughed. True, but that's life, right? Sometimes you have to take what you want. Even if it belongs to someone else? Everything belongs to someone else until it doesn't. I left his office with a new understanding of who I was dealing with. Colin wasn't just an opportunist having an affair. He was a predator, someone who actively sought out vulnerable marriages and exploited them for his own gain. My phone buzzed as I got to my truck. A text from Ray. Ray, package delivered. Check the parking lot behind Baird Real Estate. I walked around the building. Colin's BMW was covered in bright red spray paint. Homewrecker was written across the windshield in letters 3 feet tall. The side panels said, "Married women are not trophies," and "Karma is coming." Through the office window, I could see Colin on the phone, gesturing frantically. His receptionist was taking photos with her cell phone. Within minutes, a small crowd had gathered, people taking pictures, pointing, laughing. In a town the size of Garrison, news traveled fast. My phone rang. Lydia. Elliot, where are you? At the supply yard. Why? Someone vandalized Colin Baird's car. It's all over social media. That's terrible. Any idea who would do such a thing? No, but people are saying he's been having an affair with a married woman. Really? Do they know who? Not yet, but you know how people talk in this town. I do indeed. Secrets have a way of coming out. Elliot, you sound strange. Are you okay? Never better. How's your day going? Fine. Normal. I have to work late again tonight. Another sensitive situation? Yes. Well, be careful out there. Sounds like there's a lot of drama going around. After I hung up, I drove to Dottie's diner. The place was buzzing with conversation about Colin's car. Dottie was in her element, dispensing gossip like coffee refills. Elliot, did you hear about the excitement? Hard to miss. Any theories about who did it? Oh, honey, that man's made enemies all over town. Could be any number of people. Including angry husbands? Especially angry husbands. Colin Baird's been playing with fire for years. About time he got burned. I ordered coffee and a slice of pie. Listened to the speculation swirling around me. Names were being mentioned, marriages dissected, affairs analyzed. It was like watching a wildfire spread through dry grass. My phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. Unknown. This is just the beginning. Back off now or things get worse. I showed the message to Dottie. Any idea who might send something like this? She studied it carefully. Honey, that sounds like someone who's scared. Scared people do stupid things. Like what? Like making threats they can't back up. That evening, I waited for Lydia to leave for her work emergency. She was dressed up again, nervous, checking her phone constantly. You sure you'll be okay here alone? She asked. I'll manage. Ray's coming by later to help me with some paperwork. Oh, well, don't wait up. This could take all night. After she left, Ray arrived with a 6-pack of beer and a folder full of information about Colin Baird. Your boy's in trouble, he said, spreading documents across my kitchen table. His business is leveraged to the hilt. He's behind on his mortgage, and he's got gambling debts in Boston. How much debt? North of $200,000. And some of it's to people who don't accept late payments. So he needs money. Desperately, which explains his interest in your wife. I studied the financial documents. Colin's real estate business was failing. His expensive lifestyle was built on credit and lies. Lydia wasn't just his mistress, she was his retirement plan. There's more, Ray said. I talked to some people in Boston. Colin's got a history of targeting married women, especially ones with wealthy husbands. How many? At least 3 that I could confirm. All ended in expensive divorces where the women lost everything. Lost everything how? Colin would seduce them, convince them to leave their husbands, then disappear once the divorce was final. Sometimes he'd even testify against them in court, claim they'd tried to bribe him or threatened him. The pattern was clear. Colin was a professional marriage wrecker, someone who made his living destroying families and stealing assets. and Lydia was his current target. "What do you want to do?" Ray asked. I opened a beer, stared out the window at the darkness beyond. "I want to give them exactly what they're planning to give me, which is complete and total destruction." The next morning, I found Lydia in the kitchen, frantically scrubbing coffee stains from her white blouse. "Rough morning?" I asked. "I spilled coffee in the car. This blouse is ruined." "That's a shame. It's pretty." She looked up at me suspiciously. "Since when do you notice my clothes?" "I notice lots of things, like how you've been working late every night this week." "I told you, we have a big project." "What kind of project?" "Personnel issues. Very sensitive." "Must be. You've been getting texts at all hours." Her hands stilled on the blouse. "What texts?" "The ones that wake you up at night, the ones you answer in the bathroom with the door locked." "Elliot, what are you implying?" "I'm not implying anything. I'm observing. My wife is stressed, distracted, secretive. As her husband, I'm concerned." "There's nothing to be concerned about." "Good. Then you won't mind if I take you to lunch today. We can go to that new place on Main Street." "I can't. I'm busy." "Dinner then?" "Also busy." "This weekend?" "Elliot, stop. I have commitments." "What commitments?" "Work commitments. Social commitments. Things you wouldn't understand." "Try me." She threw the blouse into the sink with enough force to splash water onto the counter. "Why are you being like this?" "Like what?" "Clingy, demanding. It's not attractive." "I'm trying to spend time with my wife. Since when is that unattractive?" "Since you started acting like a jealous teenager." "Am I being jealous, or am I being observant?" She grabbed her purse and keys, headed for the door. "I'm late for work." "Lydia." She stopped, didn't turn around. "I love you," I said. "Whatever's going on, we can work through it." For a moment, her shoulders sagged. I thought she might turn around, might tell me the truth, might give us a chance to save our marriage. Instead, she straightened up and walked out without a word. After she left, I called my lawyer, David Chen. We'd gone to high school together, and he'd handled the legal work when I started my business. "Elliot, how's the construction business?" "Booming." "Listen, David, I need some advice. Hypothetically, if someone wanted to protect their assets during a divorce, what would be the best approach?" "That's a big question. Are we talking about a friendly divorce or a contested one?" "Let's assume contested, with infidelity involved." "Ah, well, hypothetically, the spouse who can prove infidelity usually has an advantage, especially if there's evidence of financial misconduct." "What kind of financial misconduct?" "Hidden assets, unauthorized spending, attempts to defraud the other spouse. Maine courts take a dim view of that sort of thing." "What about evidence? What would someone need to prove infidelity?" "Photos, text messages, witness testimony, bank records showing unexplained expenses. The more documentation, the better." "And if someone were planning to leave their spouse for another person?" "Then they'd better make sure their hands are clean. Because if the other spouse has a good lawyer and solid evidence, they could lose everything." I thanked David and hung up, then called Ray. "I need you to do something else for me," I said. "Name it. I want to know every place Colin Baird goes, everyone he talks to, everything he does. And I want to know about Lydia's activities too." "You want me to follow them?" "I want you to document their activities, for legal purposes." "Got it. Anything else?" "Yeah. I want to set up a meeting. Somewhere public, somewhere they'll feel safe." "What kind of meeting?" "The kind where people reveal their true intentions." That evening, I texted Lydia from a burner phone I'd bought that afternoon. Me. "This is a friend. Your husband knows about Colin. Get out now before it's too late." She was home within an hour, pacing the kitchen like a caged animal. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Fine, just tired." "You seem agitated." "I'm not agitated. Your hands are shaking." She shoved her hands into her pockets. "I'm cold. It's 70 degrees in here. Elliot, please, I just want to relax." I nodded, went back to reading my magazine. But I watched her from the corner of my eye as she checked her phone obsessively, typed messages, deleted them, typed new ones. At 10 p.m., she went upstairs to bed. I waited an hour, then checked the security cameras. At 11:23 p.m., she snuck out again. This time, I was ready. Ray was parked down the street in his pickup, and we followed her to an all-night diner on the outskirts of town. Colin was already there, sitting in a back booth, looking nervous. We parked across the street and watched through telephoto lenses as they had what appeared to be an intense conversation. Lydia was gesturing frantically. Colin kept looking around like he expected trouble. After 20 minutes, they left separately. Lydia went home. Colin drove to his apartment complex. Ray and I followed Colin. "What's the plan?" Ray asked as we watched Colin's apartment from the parking lot. "I'm going to have a conversation with him." "What kind of conversation?" "The kind where I explain the consequences of his actions." "Elliot, be careful. This guy's desperate. Desperate people do stupid things. I'm counting on it." I walked up to Colin's door and knocked. When he answered, wearing a bathrobe and holding a glass of whiskey, his face went pale. "Elliot, what are you doing here? We need to talk." "It's late. Maybe we could—" "Now." He stepped aside, let me into his apartment. It was expensive but tasteless, all leather furniture and abstract art, like a hotel room trying too hard to impress. "Drink?" he offered. "No thanks. This won't take long." "What's on your mind?" I sat down in his leather armchair, made myself comfortable. "My wife." "Your wife?" "Lydia. You remember her. Pretty brunette, drives a white Lexus, tastes like lies and betrayal." Colin's hand tightened on his whiskey glass. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do. You've been talking about it with her for months. Planning it, documenting it, getting ready to cash in." "Elliot, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "The only misunderstanding was thinking I'm stupid enough not to notice." I pulled out my phone, showed him photos from the motel, screenshots of their text messages, copies of the financial documents they'd hidden. "Jesus," Colin whispered. "He's not going to help you, neither is Lydia. Look, this isn't what it looks like. It looks like you seduced my wife, convinced her to help you steal my assets, and planned to disappear once you'd destroyed my family. That's not— We weren't going to— Weren't going to what? Steal from me, destroy my marriage, ruin my children's lives?" Colin sat down heavily on his couch. "It's complicated." "No, it's simple. You're a predator, and she's your victim. The only question is, what happens next?" "What do you want?" "I want you to disappear. Tonight. Leave town, leave the state, leave my family alone." "I can't just leave. I have a business, clients, obligations." "Your business is bankrupt. Your clients are going to find out about your gambling debts and your history of destroying marriages. Your obligations are about to become someone else's problem." "How do you—" "I know everything, Colin. Your financial situation, your criminal associates in Boston, your pattern of targeting married women. I know about the other wives you've destroyed, the families you've ruined." He was sweating now, despite the air conditioning. "What are you going to do?" "That depends on you. You can leave quietly, and this stays between us. Or you can stay, and I make sure everyone in Maine knows exactly what kind of man you are." "And Lydia?" "Lydia is my wife. I'll handle Lydia. She won't just let this go. She's in too deep." "How deep?" Colin looked at me with something that might have been pity. "She thinks she loves me." "No, she thinks she loves your money. Unfortunately for both of you, you don't have any—" "She's going to be hurt. She's going to be divorced." I stood up, headed for the door. "You have 24 hours to leave town. If you're still here tomorrow night, I start making phone calls. To your creditors, your clients, your gambling buddies in Boston." "Elliot, wait." I turned back. "What?" "She's not going to forgive you for this." "I'm not looking for forgiveness. I'm looking for justice." "What's the difference?" "Forgiveness is something you ask for. Justice is something you take." The next morning, Lydia was gone before I woke up. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter. "Gone to my mother's for a few days. Need space to think." I called her mother's house. Lydia wasn't there. I checked our joint bank account. She'd withdrawn $15,000. I called David Chen. "I need to file for divorce," I said. "Today." "Elliot, are you sure? Sometimes these things can be worked out with counseling." "I'm sure. How quickly can we move?" "With evidence of infidelity and financial misconduct? Very quickly. What kind of evidence do we have?" I spent the next hour walking David through everything. The photos, the text messages, the hidden phone, the financial documents, the unauthorized bank withdrawal. "This is solid," he said finally. "More than solid. With this evidence, you'll keep the house, the business, probably get primary custody of the children." "What about spousal support?" "Given the circumstances, unlikely. She'll be lucky to get visitation rights." After I hung up with David, I called Rebecca to check on the kids. "They're fine," she said, "but they're asking questions. When are you going to tell them what's happening?" "Soon. I want to make sure everything's settled first." "Elliot, are you okay? You sound different." "Different how? Harder? Colder? Maybe that's what I needed to be all along." That afternoon, Paul Martinez returned to finish the kitchen renovation. He found me sitting at the table, staring at divorce papers. "Rough day?" he asked. "Getting better?" "Good, because I found something else in that wall, something you need to see." He handed me a small notebook, the kind used for recording measurements and material costs. But this one contained something else, a detailed plan for my murder. The handwriting was Lydia's. The plan was Colin's. According to the notebook, they'd been planning to kill me for 3 months, make it look like an accident at the construction site, collect the life insurance, sell the business, disappear together. "Jesus Christ," I whispered. "There's more," Paul said. He handed me a manila envelope. Bank statements, insurance policies, even a fake will leaving everything to Lydia. I studied the documents with growing horror and rage. They hadn't just been planning to divorce me. They'd been planning to murder me. "Paul, I need you to take this to the police." "Already did. Detective Morrison's on his way over." 20 minutes later, Detective Sarah Morrison was sitting in my kitchen, reviewing the evidence with the methodical attention of someone who'd seen too much human evil. "This is serious, Elliot. We're talking about conspiracy to commit murder." "Can you arrest them?" "We can try, but first we need to find them." "Find them?" "Lydia's car was found abandoned at the Portland airport this morning. No sign of her or Colin Baird." My blood went cold. "They ran." "Looks like it, but don't worry. We'll find them." "What if you don't?" "We will. People like this always make mistakes." After Detective Morrison left, I sat alone in my kitchen, surrounded by the wreckage of my marriage and the evidence of my wife's betrayal. 15 years of love, trust, and shared dreams reduced to police reports and legal documents. My phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Elliot." It was Lydia, her voice small and scared. "Where are you?" "It doesn't matter. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry." "Sorry for what? The affair, the theft, or the plan to murder me?" Silence. "The police found your notebook, Lydia. They know everything." "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." "How is it supposed to happen?" "You weren't supposed to find out. You were supposed to trust me." "Trust you to kill me?" "It wasn't my idea. Colin said it was the only way." "The only way to what?" "To be free, to be happy." "So you decided to murder the father of your children." "I never wanted to hurt the kids." "But you were willing to make them orphans." More silence. "Where's Colin?" I asked. "Gone. He left me at the airport, took all the money, said I was on my own." Despite everything, I felt a flicker of pity for her. She'd destroyed our family for a man who'd abandoned her the moment things got difficult. "Lydia, you need to turn yourself in." "I can't go to prison." "You should have thought of that before you planned to kill me." I was desperate. The marriage was over. I felt trapped. Colin promised you my life insurance money." "It wasn't about the money." "It was all about the money. You picked a man who's bankrupted 3 other women, who owes money to criminals, who makes his living destroying families. I thought he loved me. He loved your husband's assets." "Elliot, please, can't we work this out?" "Work what out? You tried to have me killed." "We can go to counseling, start over, pretend this never happened." The audacity was breathtaking. Even now, with the evidence of her betrayal spread across police desks throughout Maine, she thought she could manipulate her way back into my life. "No," I said simply. "No? No counseling, no starting over, no pretending. You made your choice. Now live with the consequences." "I'll lose everything." "You already lost everything. You just don't know it yet. The children will be better off without a mother who tried to murder their father. You can't keep them from me." "I don't have to. The state of Maine will do that when you're convicted of conspiracy to commit murder." "Elliot, please." I hung up. An hour later, Detective Morrison called back. "We found Colin Baird," she said. "Where?" "Boston, trying to board a flight to Mexico. He's in custody." "What about Lydia?" "Still looking, but she can't run forever." That evening, I picked up Emma and Jake from Rebecca's house. It was time to tell them the truth. "Dad, where's Mom?" Emma asked as we drove home. "She's gone away for a while." "When's she coming back?" Jake asked. "I don't know if she is, buddy." "Why not?" "Because sometimes grown-ups make choices that hurt their families, and when that happens, there are consequences." "What kind of consequences?" "The kind that change everything." We drove the rest of the way in silence. At home, I made dinner, helped with homework, tucked them into bed. Normal parenting activities that felt surreal given the circumstances. Later, sitting alone in my workshop, I thought about the man I'd been a week ago. Trusting, naive, blind to the rot in my own marriage. That man was gone, replaced by someone harder, more suspicious, less willing to believe in the goodness of people. Maybe that was a loss. Or maybe it was evolution. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Unknown. This isn't over. I typed back, yes it is. Unknown. You destroyed my life. Me. You destroyed your own life. I just documented it. Unknown. I'll make you pay. Me. You already tried. How did that work out for you? No response. I deleted the conversation, blocked the number, and went to bed. 3 days later, Lydia was arrested at a bus station in Philadelphia. She'd dyed her hair blonde and was carrying a fake ID, but the security cameras and her distinctive scar from a childhood accident gave her away. Colin had already confessed, hoping to reduce his sentence by cooperating with prosecutors. He'd told them everything, how he'd targeted Lydia, seduced her, convinced her that killing me was their only path to happiness and financial security. According to his confession, the plan had been simple. They would sabotage equipment at my construction site, make my death look like an industrial accident. Lydia would play the grieving widow, collect the insurance money, sell the business, and meet Colin in Costa Rica. What Colin hadn't told Lydia was that he'd planned to kill her too, once the insurance money was safely transferred to offshore accounts. She was never going to make it to Costa Rica, Detective Morrison explained during one of our meetings. Baird had already purchased a single plane ticket. He was going to eliminate her as soon as the money was secured. So she was as much a victim as I was? In some ways. But she still made the choice to participate in a murder plot. That's not something the court system takes lightly. The trial lasted 3 weeks. I testified about finding the hidden phone, the financial documents, the notebook containing their murder plan. Ray testified about Colin's history of targeting married women. Paul testified about the evidence hidden in our kitchen wall. Lydia's defense attorney tried to paint her as a manipulated victim, a woman driven to desperation by an unhappy marriage and a predatory lover. But the evidence was overwhelming. The notebook was in her handwriting. The bank withdrawals had her signature. The text messages showed her enthusiasm for their plan. Colin got 25 years for conspiracy to commit murder and fraud. Lydia got 15 years for the same charges, with the possibility of parole in 10. During her sentencing, she looked at me across the courtroom with something that might have been regret, or might have been hatred. I felt nothing for her except relief that it was over. After the trial, I focused on rebuilding my life. The kids went to counseling to help them process their mother's betrayal. Emma, at 13, understood more than Jake, but both of them struggled with the reality that their mother had tried to kill their father. "Will she ever come home?" Jake asked one night at bedtime. "No, buddy, she won't." "Good," he said, and rolled over to go to sleep. The business thrived. Apparently, being the victim of a murder plot made me something of a local celebrity. People wanted to buy supplies from the man who'd outsmarted his cheating wife and her criminal boyfriend. Ray became my full partner, buying into the company with money he'd saved from his military service. We expanded into 3 counties, hired a dozen new employees, and built a reputation for honest dealing and quality work. "You know what I learned from all this?" Ray said one day as we watched a crew unload lumber at a job site. "What's that?" "Trust is like a load-bearing beam. Once it's cracked, the whole structure becomes unstable." That's pretty philosophical for a guy who used to blow things up for a living. I've had time to think about it. Your marriage looked solid from the outside, but the foundation was rotten. How long do you think it was rotten? Probably longer than you want to know. He was right. Looking back, I could see signs I'd missed or ignored. The gradual emotional distance, the increased criticism, the way she'd started treating our marriage like a business arrangement rather than a partnership. But I'd been busy building my company, raising my children, living my life. I'd trusted my wife to be honest with me, to honor our vows, to put our family first. That trust had nearly gotten me killed. 6 months after the trial, I received a letter from Lydia in prison. She wanted to see the children, wanted a chance to explain herself, wanted forgiveness. I threw the letter away without reading it to Emma and Jake. A year later, Colin's gambling associates from Boston were arrested for money laundering and racketeering. Apparently, Colin had been laundering money through his real estate deals, using the proceeds from his marriage-wrecking schemes to pay off his debts. The investigation revealed that I wasn't his first intended murder victim. Two other husbands had died in accidents after their wives became involved with Colin. Both deaths had been ruled accidental at the time, but they were now being reinvestigated as homicides. "You're lucky to be alive," Detective Morrison told me when she called with the news. "I know. How does that feel?" "Like I've been given a second chance. What are you going to do with it?" "Live it better than I lived the first one." 2 years after the trial, Emma graduated from high school as valedictorian. She'd grown into a strong, independent young woman who understood that actions have consequences and that trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to rebuild. Jake excelled at sports and academics, channeling his anger about his mother's betrayal into achievement and determination. He rarely spoke about Lydia, but when he did, it was with the matter-of-fact acceptance of someone who'd learned early that people aren't always who they pretend to be. "Do you miss her?" I asked him once. "I miss the mom I thought I had," he said. "But that person never really existed." At 17, he was wiser than I'd been at 39. 3 years after the trial, I met someone new. Sarah was a teacher at Emma's school, a widow who'd lost her husband to cancer. She was kind, honest, and refreshingly straightforward in her emotions and intentions. "I know about your history," she said on our third date. "Everyone in town knows about your history. Does that bother you? It makes me respect you more. You protected your family and held people accountable for their actions. That takes courage. Or stupidity. Sometimes they're the same thing." We took things slowly, building trust gradually, letting Emma and Jake get to know her before making any serious commitments. After everything we'd been through, none of us were interested in rushing into anything. 4 years after the trial, Lydia was eligible for parole. Her attorney contacted me, asking if I would write a letter of support for her release. I declined. "She served her time," the attorney argued. "She's been a model prisoner, completed her GED, participated in counseling programs." "Good for her," I said, "but that doesn't change what she did. She's the mother of your children. She's a woman who tried to have me murdered. The fact that she gave birth to my children makes it worse, not better. Don't you believe in forgiveness? I believe in consequences." Lydia was denied parole. 5 years after the trial, Emma graduated from college with a degree in criminal justice. She wanted to work in victim advocacy, helping people navigate the legal system after being betrayed by people they trusted. "I know exactly how they feel," she told me, "and I know that survival is possible." Jake was accepted to MIT on a full scholarship, planning to study engineering. He wanted to build things that would last, structures that could withstand any storm. "Like you did, Dad," he said. "You built something strong enough to survive what Mom tried to do to us." At the graduation party, surrounded by friends and family who'd supported us through the darkest period of our lives, I reflected on the journey that had brought us to this point. I'd lost a wife, but I'd gained wisdom. I'd lost my faith in people, but I'd gained the ability to see them clearly. I'd lost my innocence, but I'd gained strength. Most importantly, I'd kept my children safe and taught them that actions have consequences, that trust must be earned, and that sometimes the people who claim to love you are the ones most capable of destroying you. Ray raised a toast at the party. "To Elliot Granger," he said, "a man who proved that the truth always wins, even when it's ugly." Everyone raised their glasses. Emma smiled at me across the room. Jake gave me a thumbs up from where he stood with his girlfriend. Sarah squeezed my hand. "Any regrets?" she asked quietly. I thought about it. Did I regret marrying Lydia? Did I regret trusting her? Did I regret the 15 years I'd spent building a life with someone who'd been planning to destroy me? No, I said finally. No regrets. Why not? Because everything that happened led me here. To this moment with these people having learned what I needed to learn, which is that love without trust is just elaborate self-deception, that loyalty must be mutual to mean anything, and that sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to enable someone's destructive choices. 6 years after the trial, I married Sarah in a small ceremony attended by close friends and family. Emma walked me down the aisle. Jake was my best man. Ray handled security, making sure no uninvited guests could disrupt our happiness. It was everything my first wedding hadn't been: honest, joyful, and built on a foundation of mutual respect and genuine affection. During our honeymoon in Ireland, Sarah and I talked about the future we wanted to build together. Children, maybe. Travel, definitely. A life based on truth rather than convenient lies. "Do you think you'll ever trust completely again?" she asked as we walked along the cliffs of Moher. "I trust you." That's not what I asked. I considered her question. Would I ever again have the blind, absolute trust I'd once given Lydia? Would I ever again assume that love was enough to guarantee loyalty? No, I said honestly. I'll never trust like that again. Does that make you sad? It makes me careful. And being careful isn't a bad thing, even in marriage. Especially in marriage. She nodded, understanding. We both carried scars from our past relationships. Hers from watching cancer slowly steal her first husband. Mine from discovering that my first wife had been planning to steal my life. But scars could be sources of strength as well as pain. They reminded you of what you'd survived, what you'd learned, what you wouldn't allow to happen again. 7 years after the trial, Lydia was released from prison. She'd served her full sentence, having been denied parole twice more. She moved to Florida, changed her name, and tried to start over. She sent one letter to Emma and Jake, asking for a chance to rebuild their relationship. Both of them declined to respond. I don't hate her, Emma told me, but I don't need her in my life either. She's still your mother, I said, giving them the option to maintain contact if they wanted. Biology doesn't create obligation, Jake replied. She made her choices. We've made ours. I was proud of their maturity, their ability to set healthy boundaries, their understanding that forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation. 8 years after the trial, Colin Baird died in prison. Heart attack, according to the official report, though rumors suggested his gambling associates had finally collected their debt. I felt nothing when I heard the news. No satisfaction, no regret, nothing. He'd become irrelevant to my life the moment he'd been sentenced. 9 years after the trial, Emma was promoted to supervisor in the victim advocacy program where she worked. She'd helped hundreds of people navigate the aftermath of betrayal, fraud, and violence. Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't found that phone? She asked during one of our monthly dinners. Every day. And I'm grateful for Paul Martinez's curiosity and your grandfather's habit of hiding things in walls. Grandpa never hid anything in walls. I know. But Lydia didn't know that when she chose the hiding place. We laughed, able to find humor in the situation that had once threatened to destroy our family. Jake graduated from MIT and started his own engineering firm, specializing in structures designed to withstand extreme weather events. His first major project was a hurricane-resistant school in Louisiana. I'm building things that protect people, he told me, like you did. 10 years after the trial, I was asked to speak at a conference for small business owners about protecting assets during divorce proceedings. I'd become something of an expert on the subject, having lived through one of the most extreme cases in Maine legal history. The most important advice I can give you, I told the audience, is to pay attention. Trust your instincts. Document everything. And remember that the person sleeping next to you might not be the person you think they are. After the conference, a woman approached me. She was in her 40s, well-dressed, nervous. Mr. Granger? I think my husband might be planning something. I found some documents. I listened to her story, gave her the contact information for my lawyer and Detective Morrison, and assured her that survival was possible. How do you know? She asked. Because I survived, and if I can do it, anyone can. 11 years after the trial, Sarah and I welcomed our first child together, a daughter we named Grace. Emma and Jake were thrilled to have a baby sister, and watching them with her reminded me that families can be rebuilt, that love can triumph over betrayal, and that sometimes the best revenge is simply living well. Holding Grace in the hospital, I thought about the man I'd been before I found that phone in the kitchen wall. That man had been trusting, optimistic, perhaps a little naive. He'd believed that love was enough, that marriage was forever, that people were fundamentally good. I miss that man sometimes, but I wouldn't trade the wisdom I'd gained for the innocence I'd lost. What are you thinking about? Sarah asked from her hospital bed. The future, I said. All the things I'm going to teach her. Such as that actions have consequences, that trust must be earned, that love without respect is worthless. Heavy lessons for a baby. She'll learn them gradually, the way we all do. And if she makes mistakes, then she'll learn from them. That's what mistakes are for. 12 years after the trial, I received news that Lydia had remarried. Her new husband was a retired accountant from Tampa, a widower looking for companionship in his golden years. I wondered if she'd told him about her past. I wondered if he knew he was married to a woman who'd once planned to murder her previous husband for insurance money. I decided it wasn't my problem. Do you hope she's happy? Sarah asked when I told her the news. I hope she's learned from her mistakes. That's not the same thing. No, it's not. Do you think she has? Learned, I mean? I have no idea, and I don't need to know. 13 years after the trial, Emma got engaged to a fellow victim advocate she'd met at work. He was a good man, honest and kind, who understood her history and respected her boundaries. How do you know he's the right one? I asked her. Because he doesn't try to fix me or change me or pretend my past didn't happen. He accepts all of it. That's a good start. It's everything, Dad. It's what you and Sarah have. She was right. Sarah and I had built our relationship on acceptance of who we were, including our flaws and scars and past mistakes. We didn't try to change each other or pretend our histories were different than they were. 14 years after the trial, Jake got married to his college sweetheart in a beautiful ceremony overlooking the ocean. During his speech at the reception, he thanked me for showing him what integrity looked like. My father taught me that doing the right thing isn't always easy, but it's always worth it, he said. He taught me that protecting the people you love sometimes requires difficult choices. And he taught me that the truth, no matter how painful, is always preferable to a comfortable lie. I was proud of the man he'd become, the values he'd embraced, the life he was building. 15 years after the trial, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. It was caught early. The prognosis was good. But the diagnosis forced me to confront my mortality in a way I hadn't since finding that notebook with my murder plan written in my wife's handwriting. Are you scared? Sarah asked, as we waited for the results of my first surgery. No, I said, and realized I meant it. Why not? Because I've already faced the worst thing that could happen to me. Everything else is just life. What was the worst thing? Discovering that the person I trusted most in the world was planning to kill me. After surviving that, cancer seems manageable. The surgery was successful. The cancer was eliminated. I recovered fully and returned to work, to my family, to the life I'd rebuilt from the ashes of my first marriage. 16 years after the trial, Grace started kindergarten. She was bright, curious, and fearless in the way that children are when they feel completely safe and loved. Tell me the story about Mommy Lydia, she said one day, having heard fragments of family history from her older siblings. What do you want to know? Why did she try to hurt you? Because she made bad choices and forgot what was important. What's important? Family, truth, doing the right thing even when it's hard. Will I make bad choices? Probably everyone does. The important thing is learning from them and not making the same mistake twice. Did Mommy Lydia learn from her mistakes? I don't know, sweetheart. I hope so. 17 years after the trial, I retired from active management of the business, turning daily operations over to Ray while maintaining ownership. I wanted to spend more time with my family, to travel with Sarah, to watch Grace grow up. Any regrets about the way things turned out? Ray asked on my last official day of work. None. Really? Not even about Lydia? Especially not about Lydia. She showed me who she really was. I'm grateful for that knowledge, even though it came at a high cost. What if she'd never been caught? What if the plan had worked? Then I'd be dead, and she'd be living on my life insurance money with a man who would have eventually killed her too. So you saved her life by exposing her plan? I saved my life. What happened to her was her choice. 18 years after the trial, Emma had her first child, a son she named after me. Holding my grandson, I thought about the cycle of life, the way families continue and evolve and heal from one generation to the next. He looks like you, Emma said. Poor kid. Don't say that. You're a good-looking man. I'm a man who survived an attempted murder and lived to tell about it. That's better than good-looking. Is that how you want to be remembered? I want to be remembered as someone who protected his family and refused to be a victim. Mission accomplished. 19 years after the trial, Jake and his wife had their first child, a daughter. She was born on the anniversary of Lydia's arrest, a coincidence that felt like cosmic justice. Do you think about her? Jake asked, meaning Lydia. Sometimes. What do you think? I think she's a cautionary tale about what happens when you choose selfishness over love. Do you forgive her? Forgiveness isn't the right word. I've accepted what happened and moved on. That's not the same as forgiveness. What would forgiveness look like? I have no idea, and I don't need to find out. 20 years after the trial, I was asked to write a book about my experience. Publishers were interested in the story of the husband who'd uncovered his wife's murder plot and brought her to justice. I declined. Some stories are worth telling, but not all stories are worth selling. Instead, I focused on my family, my health, my relationships with the people who mattered most. I'd learned that revenge isn't a dish best served cold. It's a dish best not served at all. Justice, consequences, and protection of the innocent are different things entirely. On the 20th anniversary of finding that phone in the kitchen wall, Sarah and I hosted a dinner party for the people who'd helped us through that terrible time. Ray and his wife, Paul Martinez, and his family, Detective Morrison, my lawyer, David Chen, my sister, Rebecca. "What are we celebrating?" Grace asked. At 15, she was old enough to understand the full story of what had happened before she was born. "Survival," I said. "Justice. The importance of paying attention to the people in your life. And the importance of having good friends," Sarah added. "And good contractors," Paul said, raising his glass. "And good lawyers," David added. "And good cops," Detective Morrison contributed. We toasted to all of it: survival, justice, friendship, professional competence, and the random chance that had led Paul to find that phone when he did. After dinner, as we cleaned up, Grace asked me the question I'd been expecting for years. "Dad, do you think Mommy Lydia still thinks about us?" "Probably." "Do you think she's sorry?" "I think she's sorry she got caught." "That's not the same thing." "No, it's not." "Would you ever want to see her again?" "No." "Why not?" "Because some bridges, once burned, should stay burned. Because some people, once they've shown you who they really are, don't deserve a second chance to hurt you. Even if they've changed? Even then, trust, once broken completely, can't be repaired. It can only be replaced with something different. Wariness, conditional acceptance, carefully managed interaction, but never trust. That seems sad. What's sad is betraying the people who love you. What I did was protect myself and my family from further harm. I understand. Do you? Yes. You taught me that love isn't enough if it's not paired with respect and honesty. That's right. And you taught me that actions have consequences, even if those consequences take a long time to arrive. Especially then. 21 years after the trial, Lydia died in a car accident in Florida. Her husband contacted Emma and Jake to inform them, asking if they wanted to attend the funeral. They declined. "Do you want to go?" Sarah asked me. "No, she's been dead to me for 21 years. This just makes it official." "Any final thoughts about her?" "She was a woman who had everything. A loving husband, beautiful children, a comfortable life, and threw it all away for a fantasy that was never real. Do you think she realized that before she died? I hope so, but it doesn't matter now. Why not? Because the dead don't get to ask for forgiveness and the living don't owe it to them." We held our own memorial service that evening. Not for Lydia, but for the marriage I'd thought we had, the woman I'd thought she was, the life we might have built if she'd made different choices. Then we moved on, as we'd been doing for 21 years. 22 years after the trial, Grace graduated from high school as valedictorian, just like her sister Emma had. In her speech, she talked about the importance of integrity, the value of truth, and the strength that comes from surviving betrayal. "My father taught me that we can't control what other people do to us," she said. "But we can control how we respond. We can choose to be victims or survivors. We can choose bitterness or wisdom. We can choose to let our pain define us or refine us." Watching her speak, I felt a deep satisfaction that had nothing to do with revenge and everything to do with legacy. My children had learned the lessons I'd hoped to teach them. They understood the difference between love and manipulation, between loyalty and enabling, between forgiveness and foolishness. They were going to be okay. We were all going to be okay. And that, I realized, was the best possible ending to a story that had begun with such darkness and betrayal. After the graduation ceremony, as we celebrated with family and friends, I reflected on the journey that had brought us to this moment. 22 years ago, I'd been a naive man who trusted blindly and loved without conditions. That man had nearly been murdered by the woman he'd pledged to love, honor, and cherish. But from the ashes of that betrayal, I'd built something better, a life based on truth rather than illusion, relationships founded on mutual respect rather than one-sided devotion, a family that understood the difference between love and loyalty. I'd learned that the greatest revenge isn't hurting the people who hurt you. It's building a life so good, so strong, so filled with genuine love and respect, that their betrayal becomes irrelevant. I'd learned that justice isn't about punishment, it's about consequences. And sometimes the greatest consequence is simply being excluded from the good life you tried to destroy. Most importantly, I'd learned that survival isn't enough. You have to thrive. You have to build something better from the wreckage. You have to prove that their betrayal made you stronger, not weaker. Looking around at my family, Sarah, Emma, Jake, Grace, my grandchildren, the friends who'd stood by us through everything, I knew I'd succeeded. Lydia had tried to destroy my life and failed. I'd built a better one without her.